Divisional rounds are obviously taking place starting this Saturday and Sunday. We have some great matchups. Cincinnati Bengals and the Titans on Saturday, the 49ers and the Packers on Saturday, and then on Sunday, the other two remaining games, the Bucks and the Rams and the Chiefs and the Bills, all going to be fantastic games. But I think it's interesting to look at these 8 teams that are remaining and to rank, almost create a power ranking between these 8 teams that are left. So here is my power rankings with the 8 teams that are remaining in the postseason. So at number 8, I've got the Cincinnati Bengals. Listen, this is a team that collected their first playoff win in 31 years, since 1990. And the type of season that they've had, the Cincinnati's have been this incredible, heartwarming story all season. But let's be honest about them. Outside of their locker room, outside of the city of Cincinnati, outside of the state of Ohio, no one really expected this team to reach the playoffs, let alone win a playoff game. So I do think that proper context is important, because when you compare the personnel from top to bottom of the Bengals, juxtapose the other 7 teams, they are a lot weaker. Now, I love Joe Burrow. He is ascending before our very eyes. The type of moxie and the confidence that he plays with certainly permeates that locker room. And Jamar Chase is big time. T. Higgins is a great wide receiver. Joe Mixon, I love that they can run the football. But when you look at their personnel, again, it's not like they have better personnel than other teams. In fact, I'd argue that the Las Vegas Raiders had better personnel from top to bottom than the Bengals, but their elite players are just on a different level compared to some other teams. So they're able to overcome those perhaps disparities in talent at other positions. And Zach Taylor, listen, I like Zach Taylor. He's proving to be a young, intelligent coach, came over from the Rams under Sean McVay as the quarterback's coach. I think he's doing a really good job. But the reality is, when you compare him to the other coaches remaining in this postseason, he's the least decorated. He has the least pedigree as it relates to coaching. And I think that the later stages you get in the postseason, that can be a little bit concerning. So I have the Cincinnati Bengals at number 8. At number 7, the San Francisco 49ers. I love almost everything about the San Francisco 49ers. Their skilled positions are elite. Deebo Samuel is one of my favorite players in the NFL. I think he's the most versatile player in the NFL, the ultimate Swiss Army knife. You can line him up on the outside, give him 10 targets as a receiver. You can line him up in the backfield and just hand it off to him like a physical, almost like Cordero Patterson running back. He does everything extremely well. George Kittle is a top 2 or 3 tight end in the NFL. Some people have argued he's the best tight end in the NFL, given how elite he is at blocking. Brandon Ayuk is a nice weapon. And then this guy, Juwan Jennings, he's just emerged as the go-to third down weapon for Jimmy Garoppolo. Every single time it seems like they need to hit someone on a critical third down, they target Jennings. And he's been really good. Defensively, the only concern that I have is the health of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Nick Bosa ended up being in concussion protocol for about a quarter and a half in the Cowboys 49ers game. So I have some questions about how healthy is he. Fred Warner also kind of is dealing with an ankle injury. I'm not sure what type of condition he's in, but I really like San Francisco's defense. Their front 4 can get after you. Secondary, a little bit more exploitable, but really good team from top to bottom. My concerns with them are with their late game quarterback play and coaching, because their late game execution has been poor. They nearly blew that game against the Dallas Cowboys. That was a game that they should have easily won going away. And it was a lot closer because of some poor execution. And again, I really like Kyle Shanahan as a play caller. But if you look at his history as a coach and as an assistant, the end of games are where his teams have kind of fallen apart a little bit. And Jimmy Garoppolo, while I do think he has been maligned, improperly maligned and disrespected, he also has missed on some key fourth quarter throws that I think he's going to have to hit, and especially second half throws that he's going to have to hit. So those are my concerns about the 49ers is their late game execution, which is why I have them at number 7. At number 6, I have the Tennessee Titans. Now, I know people are going to think that I'm disrespecting the Tennessee Titans here, and I love A.J. Brown, a big physical wide receiver on the outside. They're getting Julio Jones back, so he's obviously a huge threat anytime he steps onto the field. But here's the problem. Of all the remaining quarterbacks in these NFL playoffs, of the 8 teams, even though the Tennessee Titans are the number 1 seed in the AFC and what they've done and how they've managed to rally around Derrick Henry's injury to still not only stay relevant but hold on to the number 1 seed in the AFC is extremely impressive and commendable. Of all the remaining quarterbacks in these playoffs, I would argue that Ryan Tannehill is probably the worst. Now, he's not bad. He's an above-average quarterback, but I'd probably have Jimmy Garoppolo nodded a little bit ahead of him, and that's a problem. Your quarterback can't be the worst quarterback of the remaining postseason teams for you to be in that top 3 or 4 upper echelon of teams. And when you look at the last couple of postseasons for the Tennessee Titans, 2019, when the Titans actually reached the AFC Championship game, they played 3 games. Played in the wild card game. That's when they upset Tom Brady and ostensibly forced his way out of New England. They went after that game to Baltimore on the road, and then they went to Kansas City. Well, they lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, but against the Patriots, Ryan Tannehill completed, and against Baltimore in that entire postseason run, Ryan Tannehill only completed 60% of his passes, yet the reason they won is because Derrick Henry went off for 185 rushing yards and then 182 rushing yards and then 195 rushing yards in back-to-back playoff games against the Patriots and the Ravens. Last year, when Derrick Henry was bottled up against the Ravens, Tannehill completed 69% of his passes, and yet they were handled easily. So those are the concerns that I have, because my reservation is, okay, I know that Derrick Henry is supposed to come back and he's now on the active roster list, but what does that mean? What version of Derrick Henry, how healthy is he? Because I think the version of Derrick Henry that we get is going to determine what kind of Ryan Tannehill we get. I think those two guys, they don't go hand to hand, but I think Tannehill's play can sometimes reflect the type of production that Derrick Henry gives them. So that's my biggest reservation about them. Their defense is 12th. It's not elite, but it's not bad. That's why right now I've got them, though, at number 6. At number 5, I've got the Buffalo Bills. This is a team that's rolling. They've won 5 straight games. They annihilated the Patriots 47-17 on Saturday. I think that this was the single best game of Josh Allen's career that I've seen. 21 of 25, over 300 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. They obviously have a plethora of wide receivers to go to. Stephon Diggs is an elite number 1. Emmanuel Sanders, Gabriel Davis are very solid as well. Cole Beasley, a nice slot receiver. Dawson Knox, big physical tight end who can make catches through traffic. And so I like those receivers. The concern that I kind of have is their run game. Now, I know they were one of the better running football teams in the regular season, and I know that they ran for 174 rushing yards against the Patriots. Devin Singletary rushed for 82 and 2 touchdowns. But really, Josh Allen is the bigger running threat at the quarterback position. He had 66 rushing yards in that game. Am I entirely convinced that you can rely and just hand the ball off to Devin Singletary to close out games, to collect major first downs, to close out games later in this postseason against the Chiefs and against other teams? I'm a little bit concerned about that. So that's the problem that I have. Not to mention, they were going up against a rookie quarterback in absolutely frigid weather conditions. And that's a lot more favorable when you're going up against an offense that isn't explosive and it's not potent. It's a little easier to widen the gap, I think. That's not to discredit what they did because it was extremely impressive. But again, I have my reservations about their ability when they're going up, especially on defensively, when they're going up against some of the more prolific offensive teams. Like they're facing the Chiefs this weekend. I'll be curious to see how their defense holds up. I know it was the number one rated defense in the regular season, but again, the Patriots aren't a true measuring stick of where this team's defense necessarily stacks up in relation to other great elite offenses. So that's the only concern that I have about the Bills. So I have them at number 5. Number 4 is a close toss-up, but I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've won 4 straight games. They easily beat the Philadelphia Eagles 31-15, although they led 31-0 entering the fourth quarter. So those 2 late garbage touchdowns don't really mean much to me. First of all, anytime you have Tom Brady in the postseason, your team has a great chance of winning. That should just be a given at that point. But what I loved most about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is their defense. And their defense kind of returned to form from last season's postseason run, in which their defense was elite. They're getting a lot healthier. Jason Pierre-Paul came back. Levante David is back. Carlton Davis is playing well. Devin White's the linebacking core is great. Shaq Barrett could be coming back. Their running backs are healthier. Leonard Fournette is expected to play. Potentially also Ronald Jones to kind of star ahead of Giovanni Bernard and Keyshawn Vaughn. And obviously, even though there's no Chris Godwin or Antonio Brown, you still have Mike Evans, you still have Gronk, you still have Tyler Johnson, you still have Cameron Brate, and you can throw it to those running backs, which is something that Tom Brady loves to do. And so he still has, I think, enough weapons to still generate a lot of offense with this team. The only concern that I have about them is their offensive line. Tristan Wirfs is dealing with an ankle injury that forced him to miss about half the game against the Eagles, and that was kind of what allowed the Eagles pass rush to get to Tom Brady and to sack him 4 times. When the O-line is healthy, they do a great job protecting Brady, but when it collapses, that's where he's more susceptible. And now Ryan Jensen, their starting center, it's uncertain whether he's ready to go for Sunday. And if he is ready to go, how healthy will he be? So they're a little bit susceptible against teams with a great pass rush. And that's a problem for a guy in Brady who's 44, immobile. He needs that protection. And if it's not shored up with Wirfs or with Jensen or anyone else, especially going up against a team like the Rams, that could pose some problems. So that's why I have them at number 4. And speaking of the Rams, I have them at number 3. Again, the Rams and the Bucs, very close, narrow split between those two teams right now. But they did smoke the Cardinals 34-11. Their defense just terrorized Kyler Murray. He had the worst game of his career. 7.6 QBR. He just looked terrified out there. And they forced 2 interceptions, 2 sacks, a forced fumble. And truthfully, there aren't many glaring weaknesses when you look at this Rams team, because offensively, Odell Beckham Jr. is thriving. He's flourishing in this offense. He had a touchdown reception against the Cardinals. He's had 6 touchdown receptions over his last 9 games since joining the team. So he's doing a great job of complimenting Cooper Kupp and obviously serving a great number 2 role alongside Van Jefferson. You still have Tyler Higbee as a reliable tight end. So they've got some really nice pieces, especially now that he is gelling, and their running back position has shored up a lot. Cam Akers is back. It's almost miraculous that he's back when he ruptured his Achilles in just like August, and he's back playing It's kind of unfathomable, but it's amazing that he is now joining up. Sony Michel is doing a great job running the football. You still have Darrell Henderson as your third back, so they've shored up the running back position. Obviously, Sean McVay is proving to be a great coach. The only question mark with the Rams is with Matthew Stafford. Is how will Matthew Stafford play in these high leverage moments the farther along the Rams go in the postseason? Because we know that in his 3 postseason trips with the Lions, he couldn't win a game. So he just collected his first win, but he only had to throw the ball 17 times. They were able to rely on their defense and the run game to carry the load. Well, against a team like the Buccaneers, he's going to have to throw it a lot more than 17 times. And can he play well on the road? That's been the bigger issue for Matthew Stafford. Is at home, he's been a really good quarterback. On the road, it's been a little bit of a toss-up. And so that's the question mark regarding him. At number 2 is the Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, the Kansas City Chiefs, they've won 10 of their last 11 games. They've scored 30-plus points in 4 out of their last 5 games. So this team is clearly clicking on all cylinders on offense. And it's because Patrick Mahomes, his decision-making, he's been a lot smarter and cautious with the football. Doesn't mean he's not flinging it around. He's not taking as many chances, although that is true. But he's showing a lot more restraint, a lot more patience. He's trusting his receivers. He is distributing the ball judiciously. He's taking what the defense is giving to him. And so when you've got a much more patient Patrick Mahomes who's not trying to force quite as many things, that's a really dangerous Mahomes. And you combine that with Andy Reid, the brilliance he displays on offense with his play calling, that's a tall task. They've got just a bevy of wide receiver options. Again, you just see the depth of this team with not only Kelsey and Hill, but Hardman and Pringle and Robinson and McKinnon. There's so many guys that are making plays, not to mention Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be back. So they have so many options that they can turn to, and their defense has been playing a lot better, and especially in the first quarters and the first halves of games, their defense has been almost stout over the last 10, 11 games. And so what that's done is it's given their offense the opportunity to build leads. And when you're facing the Kansas City Chiefs, your biggest nightmare is a large deficit, because then it puts so much added pressure on your offense to have to try and match the scoring prowess of the Chiefs offense. Not so much that the defense can't hold up against the Chiefs offense, but it's your own team's offense now in a hole trying to play hurry up against a Chiefs offense that thrives in those types of situations. So that's why I've got Kansas City at number 2. And at number 1, I've been consistent about this for a while, the Green Bay Packers. I just think from outside, with the exception of week 1, they've been the most balanced and the most consistent team all season. Aaron Rodgers is the front runner for MVP. The chemistry he has with Davante Adams perhaps is the best in football for a quarterback wide receiver duo. Maybe Stafford and Cooper Kupp are challenging, but I still think Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers is the best 1-2 duo right now in the NFL. He's got Lazard and Valdez-Scantling playing well. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, you got the power and the finesse run game. And to me, listen, no team is perfect. Every team has some flaws. The Green Bay Packers defense is a little bit susceptible to the run. That's true. But no team is perfect. And they've got great linebackers. They get after your quarterback. Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith should be both back. David Bakhtiari, their starting left tackle, should be back to shore up the offensive line. And their defense, especially their secondary, is elite. They're very opportunistic. Jair Alexander should be back. So I like the Packers as the best team right now. Again, they got a bye week for receiving the number 1 overall seed, but I like them as the number 1 team right now in the postseason.